There's another thing where I have to ask, why is Britain so different? In London's iconic venerable Westminster government district has a nickname. It's called Pestminster. Anyone who works there experiences kind of a toxic atmosphere. And Labour MP Charlotte Nichols, when she walks in the hallway in the evening, when a male colleague groped her from behind and told her, "It's nice that we are going home together." He denies the accusation. But Charlotte experiences this regularly. She says, "In my first week in Parliament, I was immediately warned about who I should stay away from, not accepting drinks or allowing them to take me with them. I experienced a lot of sexual harassment, sexist comments, I was groped, also things like this, or that even go beyond that." And Conservative Party MP Caroline Noakes has been an MP for 13 years and estimates that she has been arrested at least 50 times since then, and she can no longer count other people's stories. "Most women here have to endure inappropriate comments all the time," she says. "People often only talk about the physical attacks. What also happens are the many small attacks. You are only here because you have breasts," and this would happen all the time. And a new rape case is currently shaking the government district. A few days before, Peter Bone made headlines. He is said to have approached an employee with his pants down, which he rejects, of course, or denies. And before that, allegations of sexual harassment against Julian Knight made the rounds. And he also denies this. And since the current parliament has been in session, 24 cases have already been officially investigated. Some investigations are still ongoing. Some nothing is known about. And Jade Filer has left Westminster. She was a staff member in Parliament. What happened there would not be tolerated anywhere else, she says. She teamed up with other women early on to protect herself from those attacks. She said, "We regularly swapped stories and gave each other advice to help us feel safer. We had a list of deputies who were scary or known for inappropriate behavior." Employees are particularly affected. There are also chat groups with countless stories. It is said that they try to avoid suspected tormentors out of fear of consequences. In Parliament in the government district and in the evenings in the neighbouring pubs. These are very powerful people, and you are often afraid of repercussions if you take on someone who maybe 80,000 people voted for. As a young employee, you're just worried about going up against people who have some kind of immunity, says Filer. And misunderstood power meets powerlessness here. That's a toxic mix. What we have there is a culture that doesn't value others, and they haven't evolved how to behave in the workplace, like is the case in every other company. There has been a complaints office in Parliament for 5 years. Charlotte Nichols reported the case of her alleged hallway tormentor there, and she will have to wait months for a result. That's standard. But does she trust the complaints office? She says, "I don't want to say anything about that." The complaints office can impose penalties against members of Parliament if the sexual assault can be proven. Chris Pincher was forced to stay away from Parliament for 8 weeks after groping men. Rob Roberts, 6 weeks after sexually assaulting a woman. Patrick Grady from the Scottish National Party was not allowed into Parliament for 2 days for groping and should show remorse. "I apologize to the person who complained for my behavior and the suffering I caused." That is what he said in June 2022. Parties can also exclude suspected tormentors from the party for a period of time. They are still allowed to remain in Parliament as non-party members then. Nobody believes that all of this has any deterrent effect on perpetrators, and it doesn't send a signal to victims that the misconduct is being taken seriously, says Charlotte Nichols. The Complaints Office must act faster and also be allowed to throw out MPs. If someone has been found guilty of sexual harassment, then the sanction must be the end of their political career, she says. Such measures require a majority among parliamentarians. That's the problem so far. It is entirely possible that a new case will soon become public. in Westminster, as I said, called Pestminster. Sex scandals in Parliament are a big problem for several reasons. They can damage the public's trust in Parliament and in the political process. When politicians are caught in sex scandals, it can make people feel like they cannot trust their elected officials to behave ethically and responsibly. And this leads to cynicism and a feeling of apathy towards politics. And they lead to calls for resignations and early elections. In some cases, sex scandals have led to politicians resigning from their positions or even triggering early elections. And this causes instability in government and makes it difficult to pass important legislation with all these discussions. And this damages the reputation of the parties involved. When politicians from a particular party are involved in sex scandals, it reflects badly on the party as a whole. And this makes it difficult for the party to win elections and to retain the support of voters. And of course, this can lead to legal action. In some cases, sex scandals have led to criminal charges being brought against politicians, and this results in convictions and even imprisonment. And in addition to these general reasons, there are also some specific factors that make sex scandals in Parliament particularly problematic in the UK. The UK has a strong tradition of public service and ethical behavior. Long time ago, obviously. And this means that there's a high level of expectation that politicians will behave in a certain way. And when they do not meet these expectations, it can be particularly damaging to their reputations. The UK media is very interested in sex scandals, and this means that any sex scandals involving a politician is likely to be given a lot of media coverage. And this, of course, then further damages the politicians' reputations for good reason and makes it more difficult for them to recover. The UK has a system of proportional representation, as you know, and this means that there are often a number of different parties in Parliament, each with its own set of values and priorities. And this can make it difficult to agree on a common response to sex scandals, which is a shame. But as a result of these factors, sex scandals in Parliament do have a significant impact on British politics. And this leads to a loss of public trust, instability in government, and damage to the reputations of the parties involved. And as I said, they even lead to legal action. But there are a number of possible explanations for why sex scandals seem to happen more often in the UK Parliament than in other Western parliaments. The UK Parliament is a very old and traditional institution, and this means that there are a number of outdated practices and norms in place that can make it easier for sex scandals to occur. For example, the UK Parliament still has a number of private members' clubs where MPs can meet and socialize without being subject to public scrutiny. And these clubs can provide a kind of a breeding ground for inappropriate behavior. The UK Parliament is also a very male-dominated institution. Women make up just 26% of MPs in the UK, which is one of the lowest proportions in Europe. And this means that there are a lot of powerful men in Parliament who may feel that they are just above the law. The UK Parliament is a very insular institution. MPs spend a lot of time working in Parliament and socializing with other MPs, and this can create a sense of entitlement and a feeling that they are not accountable to the public. And the UK has a strong tradition of sensationalist reporting. The UK media, as I said, is very interesting in sex scandals, and they are often quick to report on any allegations of inappropriate behavior. And this can create a climate where MPs feel under constant pressure and are more likely to make mistakes. And the UK has a relatively weak system of parliamentary oversight. There are a number of committees in Parliament that are supposed to hold MPs accountable, but they have been criticized for being ineffective. And this means that MPs are able to get away with bad behavior more easily than they might in other countries. It's important to note that there is no single explanation for why sex scandals seem to happen more often in the UK Parliament than in other Western parliaments. But it is likely that this number of factors are at play and that the situation is of course complex, but depends on these factors. And those factors that I named today are some of the most commonly cited explanations for this. But if you have a better one, let me know in the comments. And if you want to see a different topic, the next video is right here in the end screen. I'll see you there. I'll be back.